Jennifer from Fiberflux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet this gorgeous Woodland Splendor Poncho. This is a poncho that I created from the same stitch, if you recognize it, as the Forest Splendor Crochet Along that we did for our just recently ended crochet along. Now this is, again, the same stitch, but I've seamed it, so it becomes this really beautiful poncho. And the reason I created this pattern was because of all of you. At the beginning of the crochet along, I asked what kinds of things you'd like to see for the crochet along. And about half of you said a shawl, and the other half of you said a poncho. So I figured we'd take the same stitch, and this time instead of stripes, we did kind of a monochromatic color scheme, this really modern taupe color, and turn it into a poncho. And I have to say, this is simply a rectangle, and I'm going to show you how to seam it later. And then I've even kind of flipped this down to look like a collar, and then you have this pretty point in the front to wear. So as far as garments go that you can crochet, it really doesn't get any easier than this. And it's very customizable. I simply worked on my rectangle and kind of wrapped it around myself until it was as long as I wanted it to be. The finished piece here that I made is the rectangle, before we seamed it, is about 45 inches long, and the width of the rectangle before we seamed it is about 18 inches long. You can also, if you're making this for someone, you can wrap it around them too as you work, and you can kind of hold it together with clips or even like clothespins or something like that before you seam it to kind of let you know how it's going to look. So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, a ruler or tape measure, a 6.5 millimeter K crochet hook, and your yarn. I'm going to be using Vanna's Choice by Lion Brand yarn in the taupe colorway. Now mine don't have a label, but you're going to need 4 balls of this yarn in whatever colors you like, really, but this is the taupe color in case you're wondering. I do have another one here that does have a label. Each one of these is 170 yards or 156 meters. And if you look for the medium 4 on the yarn weight scale and the J crochet hook recommendation, you'll be just fine. Now I'm going up a hook size just to make mine a little bit drapier, but we'll need 4 balls of the Vanna's Choice yarn, and again, 170 yards per ball, okay? Okay, if you joined us for the fall crochet along, you'll find that the beginning of this is going to be the same as the Forest Splendor shawl. However, the later part, the construction part of the video, will be a little bit different than the shawl. So what we're going to do is put a slip knot on our hook. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Next, we're going to chain 57. Now, if you need your poncho to be a little bit wider, this is a multiple of 4 plus 1. So if you're unfamiliar with that concept, it just means that when you do your starting chain, you're going to do 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 and so forth, and then add 1 more chain onto that. So a multiple of 4 plus 1. Okay, so to make a chain, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, and 57. Okay, so here's our starting chain. Now I know a lot of you ask about the tightness of the starting chain. If you need to go up a hook size to make your starting chain, feel free to do that, and then you can jump back to the 6.5 millimeter hook for the rest of the project. But I know sometimes if it's too tight, it can draw in the bottom. And because we're going to be seaming edges together, we want to make sure that they are uniform and the same as the other edges and nice and straight. Okay, so let's start with row 1. For row 1, we're going to work a double crochet in the 6th chain from the hook. So this loop here does not count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we're going to work a double crochet, chain 2 double crochet rather. So to make a double crochet, wrap the yarn around the hook, insert the hook into that chain, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops, okay? So then we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then work another double crochet into that same chain, okay? So it's gonna create this sort of V. Let me grab a little bit more yarn before we proceed. Okay, then what we're gonna do is skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and in the next chain, we're gonna do the same thing. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. So double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, then do the same thing. Double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet, skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and in the next chain do the same thing. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and in the next chain do the same thing. We're just doing this all the way across. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, and we're going to get some more yarn here. Okay, this taupe color is so pretty for fall and winter, just as a side note. So skip 3 chains, and in the next chain do the same thing. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. We're just kind of setting up the foundation here. Skip 3 chains, and the chain after that, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and then work your next V, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, skip 3 chains, and in the chain after that, work your next V, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. We are moving right along. Skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and then in the next chain after that, do the same thing. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, skip 3 chains, work your next V, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Almost to the end here. Skip 3 chains, work your next V, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, do the same thing. Okay, so now we're at the end of the row. Again, we work that last V of the row. Now, once you have just a few chains left, you should have 3 chains at the end of your row. If you're short a chain or have an extra chain, it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. It'll sort of blend in. So don't panic if it's not exactly 3. But in those last 3 chains, skip the 2 chains, and in that very last chain, we're just going to work 1 double crochet to finish off row 1. Okay? So here's what row 1's going to look like. And if you joined us for the shawl version of this, the Forest Splendor shawl for our fall crochet along, you'll notice that your stitches are going to be a little bit more open and a little bit looser and more drapey because we're using the K crochet hook this time. Okay, so we're going to move on to row 2 next. So what we're going to do is chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work. Now, for this row, we're going to be working into these V's that we created from the row before. So in the written pattern, I refer to these as the chain 2 spaces. So remember when we worked a chain 2 in between those double crochets? That created a space, a V space, a chain 2 space. So in each one of these chain 2 spaces, we're going to work 4 double crochets, okay? So locate that first V that you come to, and you're going to work 4 double crochets right into that chain 2 space. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. See how that, Okay, so locate the next V and do the same thing. 4 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to do a couple of these together. Go to the next V, that chain 2 space, do the same thing. Work 4 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, we're going to work 4 double crochets in each one of these V's all the way across. So when we get towards the end of this row, I'm going to show you how to finish it off. Okay, I'm just working my group of 4 double crochets into that last V, that chain 2 space. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now to finish off this row, we're going to work a double crochet in the turning chain space. Now remember the turning chain when we transition from row to row, that creates a little space here at the end. Just work a double crochet into that turning chain space. Okay, so row 2 is complete. So we're starting to see that pretty lace pattern. Okay, so let's move on to row 3. Row 3 is a little bit different. We're going to be working those V's again, but the way you start and finish each row varies. Okay, so for row 3, we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then turn our work. Now, if you notice, this turning chain has 1 extra because it's going to count as part of this first V. So what we're going to do is, see this first space that you come to, sort of at the base of your chain? See that space right there? We're going to work a double crochet into that space. And that extra chain gives us a little bit of that V look that we're after. Okay, now we're going to work, remember our V's from this row 1? Our V's are going to be double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. The same thing as before. But this time we're going to work them in between these groups of 4 double crochets. So see, we have 4 double crochets here, and then there's an opening, and then 4 double crochets here. So in that opening right there, we're going to work our V. So double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, right into that space in between those groups. Okay, so it'll look like that. Okay, hop over to that next space in between those 2 groups and work double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. We're going to do this all the way across. Hop over to the next space, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Let me get a little bit more yarn here. Hop over to the next space and go double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Next space, same thing. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Next space, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. We're doing this all the way across. Next space, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. I'm going to keep going with mine, and then I'm going to show you how to finish off row 3 in just a bit. Chain 1 this time, not 2, just 1, and a double crochet. Okay, so we have rows 1, 2, and 3 completed. Next we're going to move on to row 4. Okay, so for row 4 we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn. Now in this first space, see this little, it's almost like a miniature V. It's a little bit narrower than the other ones. But in that first V that you come to, you're going to work 2 double crochets into that V. So 1 and 2. And then for the rest of the V's on the row, we're going to work 4 double crochet right into that chain 2 space, the center of each V. So that was 1, this is 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so it'll look like that. So our pattern is really starting to kind of play out here. Let's do a few more together. 1, 2, 3, and 4 double crochets in that chain 2 space from the previous row. Next V, work your 4 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's keep going, working those 4 double crochets into each one of these V's for the remainder of the row, and then we'll rejoin in just a moment. Okay, I'm just working that last double crochet of that last group. And then to finish off row 4, we're going to work 3 double crochets into that turning chain space to finish off the row. Okay, just like that. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 rows done. The next thing we're going to do is work on our 5th row, our final row of our pattern repeat. So for row 5, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and turn. And now what we're going to do is work, now you have 2 groups right off the bat here. So see that first group? Even though it's 3, that's how we started, or finished the row rather. But that first group there of the row, and then the next group, so in between those 2 groups, that space, we're going to work a V. So double crochet, same thing as before, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Locate the next space in between those groups and work your V. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Next space between those groups, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Next space, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Okay, I'm going to keep going with my V's across, and then we will learn how to work the end of row 5. Okay, I'm just working that last double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in that last space of the row. Now to finish off row 5, you're going to work a double crochet in the turning chain space. So see that turning chain on the end there? Right into that space, work a double crochet. Okay, so our pattern repeat is complete. So to finish your poncho, you're just going to repeat rows 2 through 5 over and over and over until it's as long as you need it to be to wrap around. As you're working your pattern repeats, I just wanted to give you a quick tip. And when you're working with monochromatic yarn like I am, for the shawl that we did for the crochet along, we did stripes of color, so it's very easy to see where the pattern repeats started and stopped. But when you're working in a monochromatic project like this, sometimes it's hard to see where your pattern repeats are. So what you can do is grab a stitch marker. So when you do your rows 2 through 5 over and over, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, when you begin row 2 and you do your turning chain and turn to work your first stitches, let me just work the first stitch or 2 to show you what I mean. Go ahead and throw a stitch marker. See that turning chain space when you begin row 2? Throw a stitch marker into that turning chain. So as you work, you'll know where your pattern repeat began. So when you do 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you're ready to begin again, you can take your stitch marker out and put it back in. Every time you begin row 2, you can throw it back in there. And that will help you see exactly where you are in your pattern. Okay, so I worked my repeats until my poncho, or it's a rectangle at this time, is as long as I needed it to be. Now I would highly recommend, as you're working your pattern repeats, to wrap it around yourself or the person who will be wearing it, just to see how long you need it to be. But my dimensions worked out, so my width is about 18 inches wide, and then the length I worked is about 45 inches long, and that was the dimensions that I needed in order to make it fit. Okay, and then as a side note, remember we put our stitch marker in to let us know about our repeats. So I would also, to make your seam nice and neat looking, end on any of the rows that have this 4 grouping of double crochets. So it was every other row we were doing that. If you end on one of the V-stitch rows, it's gonna look not as neat. This will give you a nice solid edge, okay? So what I'm gonna do, now you can crochet your edges together, but I am going to whip stitch mine because I feel like with working lace, I'm gonna have a little bit more control over this, okay? So once you have gotten the length that you want for your poncho, go ahead and cut the yarn and fasten off. Just wrap the yarn around the hook and pull it through the loop, okay? Next, what we're gonna do is place our shawl and our poncho rather, is kind of place it where we want to seam it, okay? So make sure that when you're doing this, you can see that the back of my double crochets here look a little bit different than the fronts of the double crochets. So make sure that when you do that, the right side of the double crochets is facing outward. Now, if you're using a stitch marker like I was, you'll want to, of course, remove that. Okay, so once you make sure your stitches are faced out the right way, we're not going to seam this. We're going to instead turn it, and we're going to create a sort of V front. Okay, so you're going to take this one edge and come downward with it, and then you're going to take the other edge, and it's going to look kind of funny right now, but it will make more sense when you wear it, okay? So we're going to seam the starting edge, and then this is where we ended up. So we're going to do the starting edge to the side here, okay? So what we want to do is, I'm going to just turn this a little bit so that it's facing the right way. And then you're going to grab a long piece of yarn, and we're just going to work a seam all the way down. Okay, so grab a matching piece of yarn, and I'm going to cut mine quite long. I'm going to go at least 24 inches, if not 36 inches on that, because we're going to do a nice long seam, okay? So just cut the yarn. And if you end up not cutting your yarn long enough, that's perfectly fine. You can always just grab another piece. So what you're going to do is grab your tapestry needle and just thread your tapestry needle. And this, whenever I'm seaming edges together, you want to just keep double checking and make sure everything is always lined up, okay? So I am actually going to start down here because these are the edges we want to make sure they're nice and straight. Now, once again, this looks like a really funny shape, but it's going to make a lot more sense when we're finished, okay? So here are the bottom points here. So what we want to do is go in one side, go in the other side, and we're just going to seam it all the way up, okay? So I'm going to get us started. So just for that very first stitch that you do, go ahead and pull it all the way through, and we're going to weave all this in nice and neat in just a little bit. Okay, so just tie this at the bottom, get a nice strong knot in the bottom there, and tie it one more time just to make sure it's nice and secure. And then I like to just keep it on this flat surface, and then you can just go right up the seam here. Just go all the way up, okay? So when you do a whip stitch seam, you're basically making a spiral all the way through your work, okay? So just try and get those edges nice and neat. Now, if you chose to do stripes or a multicolor project, it might be helpful to you in terms of blending, these stitches blending. See, we're using all the same color here, but you might want to start and end on the same color, at least a little bit of it, so that these seams blend and camouflage. It really does help when you have the same color on both of your edges. Okay, so we're just going all the way up here. Okay, we're up here at the top of our seam. I've been working all the way up, and we're just about ready to finish off this seam up here. Now, if you notice, we have a tail up here from when we made our rectangle, and I'm going to go ahead and tie that onto the tail that I'm currently seaming with. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pull this out, and just tie these two right. If you don't have a tail there, that's fine. You can just create a little knot in your work. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is weave in all of our ends. Now this end that I used to see gave myself a little extra. So what you can do is grab your tapestry needle, thread that, and then just work those ends into your stitches, okay? So I have 1 from seaming and 2 from crocheting. So go in one direction with that, come back in the other direction, and then you can grab your scissors and just trim that off, okay? And then repeat for any tails that you may have. Okay, once all of your ends are woven in, now here you can see our seam and how nicely it blends into the project. The only way you can really locate the seam now is where, you know, these stitches go in this direction, these stitches go in this direction, so you can kind of see that line there. Now you can twist this around so that the now has a neck opening. See, it's like a nice little V stitch. And the photo at the beginning of this video, and there's some other photos on the blog, where when you're wearing it, if you like, you can sort of even flip it down, and it makes a nice little collar as well, which I love. And then this front point will go down the front of you. And then the back of it, let's just flip it over. This is what the back looks like. It kind of wraps around you like a shawl, and then the front dips down to give that classic, you know, poncho shape. So that is how you make the Woodland Splendor Poncho. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and sort of an add-on or bonus pattern to our fall crochet along. If you make this poncho and you're part of our Ravelry group, please share it. I'll start a thread where I'll share the link to this pattern. And because it kind of complements the fall crochet along, I'll add that in there, and you can share your photos in there as well. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.